Ontario for about 13 years before coming to McMaster. So I'm well versed in the issues that you are going through, and welcome to those who are currently at McMaster. You'll see here on the screen, for those who may be coming to McMaster in the fall, these are some programs that you can take advantage of in September. If you're also coming to McMaster as a first year, check out the SSC during the summer, because I also put on a bunch of different programs to support your transition into university. But for those who are at MAC, the first two here, academic coaching and the writing center, offer you one-on-one support. You can meet with an upper year student and you can talk about creating a weekly schedule, goal setting, how to be a better writer. They can expand upon what I'm talking about with online learning. They can talk to you about time management, how to avoid procrastination, etc. You can meet with them once, or you can meet with them many times during the term, because they can be someone that you can be accountable to and check in with. The Writing Center, they can help you with essays, case reports, labs, personal statements, any type of writing, any discipline, and any point of the writing process. You can bring scraps of paper and talk about your brainstorming all the way through to revision, and you book those on Oscar Plus. If you are looking for a tutor in a specific class, you can go to mcmaster.tutorocean.com, click in a course code, for example, Bio 1A03, and a list of tutors will pop up, and you can meet with them online to support your work. They won't help you with homework or any graded assignments. That would be academic integrity issues, but they can help you review key concepts. If you have an A- or above, just like the tutors, you can also become a tutor and earn some extra money. And that's the same address where you can put in your profile. New this year, we have virtual study sessions every Wednesday between 6 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join others who are undergrads. It's 3 hours a week where you can set aside time to avoid procrastination, study for upcoming exams, do some reading, some researching, some writing. Everyone who attends for the full session gets a pizza gift card the next day, so that's pretty exciting. You can do some studying on Wednesday and eat some pizza on Thursday. And we also have some that are specific to courses, and those are all listed on Oscar Plus, mainly first year courses with some second year. You can also see here, if you want to learn more about the programming that I just shared, the Academic Skills website. If you want more information on online learning, there's the online learning website, and the LibGuide, libguides.mcmaster.ca, is where we have all of our tip sheets. They're about one page that give lots of really clear strategies on how to support your skills development, and it also includes our full term workshop schedule. So without further ado, let's take a look at online learning, and we're going to start with the good things, because I know there are some good things that come with online learning. In fact, there's quite a bit. Now, I'm having a little bit of trouble showing my chat. It is up for now. So how about in the chat box, whether you are a current high school student or here at MAC, how would you describe online learning in one word? How about you put that into the chat? So we have it's distracting, difficult, exhausting, overwhelming, irritating, stressed. Nothing positive, I'm surprised. No one's like, I get to stay home with the cats, the dogs. I'm eating way too much being on COVID, so I gotta get out and walk more, but it's winter and that's my excuse. So I asked this question because I knew that I would get quite a lot that were not necessarily positive. But you can see here on the screen that there are good things that come from being online. There's a flexible schedule. Maybe you're not a night person, depending whether you want night classes. Maybe you have a full-time job or a part-time job that really has a lot of hours. Maybe you have family responsibilities. So it's really flexible having this being online. You become much more independent. You have to become much more organized. If you already have those skills, you may find it easier with online learning. but those may be a challenge if these are skills that you are still working on. Rapport building skills. It's difficult sometimes in the best of terms to have really great group work rapport. So being online, you have to work even harder to have really good rapport with your peers as well as with your professors and your teaching instructors. And oftentimes, especially when we were moving into online learning a year ago, it's actually been a year, a lot of questions came up in terms of communication with professors as well as with peers. How do I make relationships? How do I communicate with them? And we broke it down into the most common, I would say, concerns. And that was, how do you communicate with profs, with friends? How do you stay organized? How do you stay focused? And the academic coaches, that's one of the top reasons why they see students, is because the students are looking for more support with how to stay motivated, because it is a little bit tough, especially during that winter term. And you can see here at the bottom that getting supports early are really important, and it's such a key, regardless of whether we're online or in person. And it makes it much easier to find the supports when you know what is even available. If you don't know that there's academic coaches, you won't know to reach out to them. If you didn't know the McMaster library research team exists, where they will work with you on your research assignment, you can't reach out to them. So it's really important to know what the campus has that you can reach out to. A little bit of a side note. So let's take a look at specifically communicating with professors. And there's some really key things that you can do, and pretty easy things. So number one, following instructions. Take a look at the Q&A threads, see if the question is there, email the correct person. And I'll go right down to the bottom one as well, which probably should be number two. Should you be emailing the TA or should you be emailing the professor? See if you can find the answer in the peer groups that you have. Do you have a study group that maybe you could ask? In the specific email, you want to be formal. It's not, hey, Chris, how's it going? Until they write back and say, you know, kind regards, Chris, keep it with doctor or professor. And you also want to use your McMaster email so that the professors or TAs know that you are a current student or associated with McMaster. You want to be very specific, and even in the subject line, you could put what your actual question is. Be very brief, because maybe the professor has 10 minutes in between two tasks that they're doing. And when they see a really specific, easy to answer question, they're likely to respond back to you. You also want to include the course code and the student number, because they may be teaching thousands of students. And when you ask a question about, is that assignment due on Friday? They have no idea which assignment you're talking about. So be very specific, be very brief. If you want to meet with them one-on-one, you can indicate that in your email, and that's the best opportunity to expand and explain what's going on. But in the particular email, keep it very brief and even bold what the question is that you're asking of them. I've heard from some professors that they have upwards of 200 emails a day. So you want to make their life a little bit easier by following these email tips. When it comes to communicating with peers, how am I going to make friends? How am I going to work well with others? How can I engage with others? There are some things that you can do. Even though we're in March, you can still ask your professor to create a social thread on A2L if it hasn't already been created. And this is a space where you can try to find study group members. You can talk about the particular class, but maybe it's okay to go a little bit off topic because it's a discussion thread. Maybe you did a key concept on A, and that relates to something that you've learned and you want to talk about in regards to B. You can arrange meetups with peers, so study groups, where you can view recorded lectures together. You can discuss readings, and the little picture broke it off, but you can discuss readings and your questions. You can compare lecture notes, and you can also get together and join study groups. How do you find someone to study with when you're online? I get that question a lot. One of the ways that you can do that is by looking at who's doing a really insightful, thoughtful discussion post. Someone who's putting a lot of energy into those posts may be someone who wants to take advantage of the benefits of study groups. When we're taking a look specifically at group work, and again, I'm going to try to see if my chat will come up. It's not, and that's, oh, there it is. I do have a message here. It's directed to me, and that's okay. I think it's good for me to answer it right now. What's A2L? A2L is McMaster's online learning platform. If you're an Ontario high school student, you may be referring to D2L, and that's where the professors or the TAs put up modules, they put up lecture notes, videos. You may be doing online classes, so yes, it's an avenue to learn. When we're looking specifically at group work here, again, you may be able to choose your group members, maybe you can't choose your group members. When you're in a group, you want to decide on what platform you're going to use. It could be Teams, Zoom, OneDrive, there's others as well. Really importantly, take the time to start building a rapport. These are group members that you're going to be with for the entire term. And you want to make sure that you're, getting along as best as you can, collaborating and working on those different skills that come from teamwork. You can talk about different interests that you have. Importantly, talk about what your responsibilities are outside, family, work. Are you in a different time zone? You want to be able to find times to meet, and you want to quite early on find mini deadline times where everyone is available. You don't want to be that group that meets the night before, throws everything together, and there's no real flow to it. You want everyone to have these really good check-in points where you can share what you've been working on, ask for feedback. It's not the best strategy to get together on day one and say, I'll do part one, you do part two, you do part three. The professors can see where that's really just cut and pasted, put into a document and submitted. So you want to have these mini deadlines. And that's part of the project plan. You want to start working backwards. When is the due date? You want it to be completed at least 5 days beforehand, because that gives everyone a chance to provide feedback and do any editing or revision as needed. You want to be able to meet often, depending on when it's due. It could be every 2 weeks, maybe even every 3 weeks. You do want to document the process. That's important in case, although I'm sure it won't happen, but just in case there are any issues that arise, you want to be able to document the process, document the meetings, take meeting notes, so you can share that with those that you need to share with. And like I said, leave lots of time for revision and for editing. Has anyone done any group work since being online? Do you want to put that into the chat? Yes or no? And how did it go? Maybe you want to share a tip with others who are here. How did your group work go? So I see here some yeses, it went well, that's great. Maybe Gagan, can you share a tip of how it went well? Are you checking in often? Maybe you got to choose your group members and that's why it went well. Yeah, Teams is great for document sharing. I use that all the time with my team. Yeah, checking in, great. All right, so it sounds like I know what I'm talking about a little bit here. So the next section is looking at managing workflow. And all of these tips, they also ring true when we're looking at being in person as well. Who here is a procrastinator in the chat? Yes or no? I'm not a procrastinator when it comes to work, but I would say when it comes to personal responsibilities, doing dishes, cleaning the house, picking dandelions, that's coming up soon. I am definitely a procrastinator when it comes to being at home. And I won't ask whether you think you're lazy as well, because I want to get that out of your mind. When we are procrastinators, and those who procrastinate are not lazy. Procrastination really is based on emotional issues. And when something comes up, a task that we have to do comes up that we don't want to do, there are emotions behind it. And we don't want to face those emotions. We don't want to go through those emotions. So we freeze and retreat. And there are very common reasons when I'm talking to students about why they procrastinate. Some will say they don't know why, but when I give them some statements that they can relate to, that's usually when they say, okay, now I get it. This is usually why I procrastinate. So let's take a look at some examples. And then after, you don't have to name what the specific reasons are, but I am curious whether you can resonate with these statements. So a fear of the task. You're coming to university, it's first term, it's September. There is a project or an assignment, some homework questions that have been assigned to you, and you don't know how to get started. There's a fear of the task, and to avoid those feelings of fear, you retreat and you procrastinate. There's a frustration with the task. For me, the dandelion example. I don't like picking dandelions. It's annoying, but I want my yard to look nice. It's uninteresting. It's annoying. It happens every single summer. It lasts through all the summer. Never-ending chore. So people retreat from that and they avoid. Probably the number one reason from my experiences being at Mac these last few years is perfectionism. Students want their assignment to be perfect, and until they know how to get it to be perfect, they're going to put it off. I'm going to give it some more thought. Tomorrow, I know I'm going to get it right. Tomorrow, I'm going to make it perfect, so I'm going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, yeah, today's not the day. But on Saturday, I know I'm going to be able to start this amazing assignment. It's going to be perfect, so I'm going to start it on Saturday. So again, putting off tasks. You are in second term of maybe first year, or maybe you're in second year, and you have a similar assignment to one that you have done before, or a midterm. It didn't go very well. You felt really disappointed in yourself. You're frustrated, you're annoyed, you're angry, any of these emotional feelings. You don't want that past failure to be repeated. You're scared it's going to be repeated. Instead of looking for support, making a study group, reaching out to professors, etc., you put off the task. Of course, the wrong decision to make, but these are why students are procrastinating. Maybe the assignment isn't worth very much. It's about 5%. Maybe you're looking at discussion posts. Maybe you've been procrastinating these other bigger assignments, which means that these smaller assignments are really being procrastinated. So that's a reason why students are putting it off. If I ask for help, that means that I'm admitting that I'm in serious trouble. Of course, that's not true. All students, all ability of students should be seeking support. When you come to McMaster, you're quickly going to learn that the top students are still asking for support. They're asking for clarification, and they're building relationships with their peers and their professors and instructors. Really important lesson to learn now and during your time here at McMaster. But there are students who are nervous about asking for help. They don't ask for help, and they procrastinate. Maybe you were a top student in high school. Of course you were, because you got into McMaster. But maybe when you're coming here and there's a test and you didn't do as well as you expected to do, you know that people are going to be asking how you did. So you have procrastination studying for this exam, this midterm, or perhaps for an assignment, because there's a fear of loss of reputation and that social comparison. For those who are here from high school, you're going to learn again really quickly that at McMaster, there isn't really a sense of competition. Everyone here is very friendly and welcoming and wants you to do your best. Really great thing about being a McMaster. Sometimes something is boring. Doing the dishes is boring. Sometimes reading a 40-page scholarly journal is boring. So that is why students are procrastinating. And then finally, a resentment of the task. You do not want to do it. Maybe it's an elective, maybe it's a course that you didn't necessarily want to take. So there's a resentment. So you can see here lots of different keywords of why students are putting off tasks. And you can even see these are also related to people outside of university. When you're in the working world, you may have a frustration, a resentment, a sense of boredom. So lots of reasons why we procrastinate. Again, like I said, in the chat, are there any statements here that you can relate to? Do any of these resonate with you?
What?
So I can see here some students say they're resonating. Fear of the task. Yeah, so thanks for participating in that. So like I said, it's important to understand why it is that we're putting off tasks. And then more importantly, we can start looking at specific strategies of what we can do. So we can see here the first one, practicing mindfulness. To me, I always thought mindfulness was about yoga and journaling, and those are things that I'm never going to do. But when I learned that it's really about sticking in the present moment, it's not worrying about the past, it's not ruminating about the future, having concerns about the future, but staying in the present moment. It could be music, talking to a friend. What is it that helps you stay in the present moment? You can minimize obstacles. Sometimes obstacles happen that we can't plan for, but there are ones that we can. So think about what it is that you can do to help cultivate these good habits. I'll share a really quick story that I heard a while ago, and it's called, it ended up being this 20-second rule. This person wanted to start jogging every single morning, and they had their alarm on, and every time the alarm went off at, let's say, 6:30 in the morning, what do you think they did? They turned off their alarm and they went to bed. But when they put their alarm across the room, the next day, 6:30 comes, they have to get up to put the alarm off. Well, I'm already up, so now I could probably, put on my running shoes and do a little bit of jogging. So when you're thinking about the obstacles that come in your way, what is it that you can do to avoid them in those first 20 seconds? Setting some concrete goals. What is it that you need to do? When do you need to do it by? And start making a schedule. And that can often, again, be those mini deadlines. It doesn't have to be one large goal. It can be, what are you going to do today, this week, this month to help achieve what you need to achieve? And then for others here, chunking larger tasks. When we're looking at procrastination, even with studying, there are so many academic activities that come in mind when we talk about chunking larger tasks. It is very scary to say we're in March. I know what March looks like for university students. I've been through it. It is all your essays are due, your lab reports are due, your case studies are due. When I came to university, I thought there would be one midterm. Sometimes there are three, and you may have some midterms in March. So to say to myself, holy moly, I have 2 essays, 1 lab report, a case study, and I also have 2 midterms. It is very daunting. But when I say to myself, today I have to research 1 article, I'm going to review my notes for lecture 3, and I'm going to reach out to my study group for bio, it doesn't sound as scary and it's manageable. So chunky and large tasks really come in handy. Being accountable. You can be accountable to an academic coach. You can find a friend. I had to include a focused friend because sometimes when I would get together with friends, we would not talk about school. So it could be a family member, it could be a professor, someone that you can reach out to on a very frequent basis to talk about your successes and your challenges. Modifying your environment. Who here is watching Hot Ones instead of working on your assignments? For those of you that don't know, I am so sorry if I start distracting you because you're going to start watching Hot Ones. But it is a show where it's a challenge when you eat chicken wings, hot chicken wings. So what is it on YouTube that is distracting you? Why don't you just put your devices away if you don't actually need them? Try no in my chat. It's not working. Start the task and see what happens. I am not one who is going to go on the treadmill for 2 hours a day. Could I do 5 minutes? Sure. When I do the 5 minutes, I can probably do another 5. Maybe I could do another 5. I'm not very interested in reading that academic article, but I could read at least the abstract and the conclusion, which will take me 5 minutes. All right, it's already open. Let's start with the introduction, and then you can see how long you can go. Really important still to take breaks though, but start with 5 minutes. We're all going to face setbacks, so it is really important to reflect on them afterwards, see who you can reach out to for support, and see how you can avoid it happening again. So you can see here with our section on procrastination that procrastination is about those feelings that you need to identify and that you need to then solve. Whereas time management is about the actual awareness of time restrictions. And 3 schedules that I want to share with you are the to-do list, the weekly calendar, and the 4-month calendar. I will again attempt to open up the chat, and I'm curious to see who uses which type of schedule. Maybe Febby or Sabrina, can you let me know, are there any types of schedules that are popping up as popular to use?
Some people are saying weekly, some people are saying all of them. Some people are saying a to-do list and a monthly calendar. That's pretty common. A lot of people are saying to-do lists.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm happy to hear that students here are using them. You don't necessarily have to put into the chat. I know it's frustrating when I can't see it, but does anyone have lists of lists? That would be me. So I would have on my regular to-do list essay, but then I would also have the essay to-do list. Shocked that I was a humanities student, which is why I keep saying essays. You can switch that to lab reports or case studies. So let's take a look at the to-do list and how to use it. For me, I'm a paper person. You can see here, somehow, here's my to-do list. It's easier for me because then I can always see it at my workstation, but you can use apps or your notes perhaps on your phone. What you want to do is list all of your tasks, and then you want to prioritize them. What needs to happen during the first half of the day? What can you finish during the day? And it's perfectly okay to have things written down that you know are going to get done over the next few days. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a daily to-do list, or like I said, you could have 2 on the go. The critical, important, urgent tasks on the daily to-do list, but then that weekly to-do list as well. You can also determine the time required for the task, in particular if it's a daily to-do list, and of course, breaking down those larger chunks of what you need to complete. I would say the vast majority of students that I see work on a weekly schedule with me, because I often say that they don't have enough time in the day. But when we actually create the weekly schedule, we do end up finding time. How to use it. Again, it can be a paper copy or it can be electronic. Because we're online, You want to first start by putting in your synchronous classes, the ones that you have to go to at the same time, same place, same date. Put that in. Instead of saying for your asynchronous Chem 1A, A3, I'll do it when I feel like it, you actually want to block in time for that chemistry class and be accountable to it. You then want to put in personal responsibilities, job, volunteer, family, etc. What is going to be very surprising to high school students coming to McMaster and Mac students in their first year in particular is the staggering amount of learning that happens outside of the classroom. It is, when I was a high school teacher, I would let students write their essays in class over 3 days. That is not going to happen here. You're not going to be reading your plays together. You're not going to be reading the textbook together. It's going to be professors choosing really important information to share with you during the lectures. But your reading, your writing, your researching, your studying happens outside the classroom. So the general rule is that for each 1 hour of lecture, you're spending 2 hours outside of the class. We normally have 3 hours of lectures per week. So that's 6 hours per class that you're working outside of the classroom. Just like your asynchronous classes, you don't want to say you're going to work on these when you feel like it. You're going to put into your weekly schedule time dedicated to that particular class. And just like you have commitments to work, you don't miss your shifts during your job, you're going to be accountable to yourself to follow the schedule. And you can also include things like reward time and self-care. Some people go the extra mile and you do not have to, but they have a comfort level associated with it where they do calendar blocking. And every hour of the day is scheduled. It's scheduled with their breaks, their meals, their exercise, their reward time. You can start with that, or maybe that's a goal that you want to work up to, or something that you're not quite interested in. The weekly schedule on its own is going to work for you. This is how you find the time of those small sections in between class where you now have the time to, if not read that entire article or go into the databases and find 5 articles that you need, maybe you have time in between these classes to find 1 article. So it's really important to build up those smaller pieces of time. A 4-month calendar. Why a 4-month calendar? September, October, November, December. January, February, March, April. So a term here is 4 months. You have a 4-month calendar. It can be a dry erase calendar. It could be a printed monthly calendar. But what you want to do during that first week of school, or now, you want to schedule in your exams and your assignment dates, all those big things that are happening. You have a holiday coming up, family responsibilities, that goes in. There's a wedding in October. Well, that means in September that you need to start early. Include reminders for larger assignments, especially if it's printed monthly calendars. You don't want to flip it over and go, oh, I forgot about April 2nd. So on your March calendar, make a little note about what's happening in early April. And just like your to-do list, just like your weekly calendar, you want to put it somewhere visible in your learning area. Other tips to manage time, a little bit of a hodgepodge here. You want to set your realistic goals. You may think that you are the best multitasker in the world, but research shows that you will be a much better single tasker. Are you a night person? Are you a morning person? Maybe a midday person? If you're someone, and I hear so many times students say, I work best at 2 in the morning. And I'm like, I've been sleeping for 5 hours by then. I'm not going to ask you to change that schedule as long as you're getting a good night's sleep, as long as you're having good self-care, you're eating properly, all that good stuff. You wanted to lean into when you're productive. If I was a university student and I was saying that I was going to work on science at 11 at night, I'm putting myself up for failure and it's never going to happen because I was a person that would be up at 7 in the morning doing my work. You want to create a productive environment. You want to cut out time-wasting activities, and you also want to be flexible each week for tasks that take longer. Some students put a couple hours aside each week in their weekly calendar where they call it the catch-up period. And they didn't realize how long it would take to do blank. So they now have, and they feel more secure. They don't have the nerves and anxiety because they're getting behind, because they know that they can use that cushion time during the week to get caught up. Reward yourself, include self-care, and find supporters to help keep you on track. The next section, we're going to look at staying focused and motivated, because I know that that's an issue for a lot of students when we're on campus, and especially since we've been online. So I have here a sound familiar scenario. So we have here a student is waking up. They look at their to-do list they made the night before, but instead of tackling even the easiest of tasks, they scroll through social media. Who doesn't do that as soon as they wake up? Binge a newly released show. Yep, guilty. They may not feel great about their choices. They did look at their laptop. They saw their textbooks on the desk, but they know that they're going to feel better tomorrow or on Saturday. So how can students stay motivated while learning online? What are some tips, tricks, and strategies? And I have a whole bunch here. I've already shared with you the just 5-minute rule. Envisioning success. What does that look like? I was unmuted. Finding time to study, chunking. Someone like me had to look at the really scary things and determine the cost of failing, because that would help motivate me. I would have to pay for the course again. I may not get into the program that I want to go to. I may not be able to go into second, third, fourth year. So that is something that helped motivate me. A lot of different ways that you can help stay motivated. When we're looking at staying focused, I wanted to take a look at what you can do when you transition to class while you're engaging in learning, and then also connecting ideas. So when we are transitioning to class, you want to be performing self-care just like you would if you were going on campus. Before class, really important, take 5 minutes to look at the notes from your previous lecture. There may be things that are carrying over, and it helps get your minds on for the lesson. You could get together with study groups, and you also want to check the syllabus and prepare questions about assignments that are coming up. When you're engaging in learning, when you're in class, because we're online, you want to log in and participate frequently. You want to use a note-taking strategy. One thing that we're a big fan of is the Cornell method. If you're curious what that is, please go to the LibGuide under our note-taking section. It's really looking at 3 sections on your note paper: your notes, a summary of the note, and then any questions, cues, or things that you want to jot down to remember on one section of the paper as well. When you're meeting with your study groups, you can compare notes, you can share your ideas, you can test each other, you can teach each other. When you're in class, you're not listening to music, you are avoiding and turning off any notifications, even those cute dog videos. And when you are studying, in your notes, you want to connect the lecture content with what has already been taught, what you've learned elsewhere. Using your discussion threads, this is a great way to connect information. You could be connecting the lecture material with what you've already been reading, even better with your own personal experiences. You can bring up new points, add new perspectives, think about examples as well to explain difficult concepts. Really important as well when you're teaching each other is using examples. And when you're studying, you want to be an active studier, not a passive one who's simply reading notes and highlighting. So what does that look like to actively study? You're making tables, mind maps, testing, teaching as well. How is it that students retain information? You're listening to me now, you're reading the slides, so about 10% of that is going to be retained. But if after this presentation, I'm asking you to get together in small mini breakout rooms, which we don't have time for, but if we did, it would be practicing and it would be teaching others. How would you explain to others what active study strategies are? How would you explain to others how to communicate with your peers and your professors? That's how we retain information. So if you're studying for your high school exams in June, or whether you're studying for exams in April as a Mac student, really important to have these discussions with study group members. Doesn't even have to be a person. You could be testing and teaching a pillow. It's an idea of seeing where your learning gaps are, and then during your study sessions, going back and focusing on that. Let's take a look at taking exams online. You want to make sure that you are tech ready. You want to do a tech practice. You want to close notifications. You want to be ready 15 minutes before just in case there are any glitches. You want to understand what to do if in the middle exam something happens tech-wise. What are you supposed to do? Know what to do before the exam. Ask your professors if you can go back to questions, or is it something that you always have to do in order? Really important to know. And just to be safe, make sure you're taking a screenshot of your submission page. If you have a take-home exam, work take-home exams great. Like, I love take-home exams where you had days to complete it. But sometimes, especially for me, it gave me a false sense of security. And I would often actually put it off until the last minute because I thought I had so much time to work on it. But with take-home exams, the professors are going to be much more stringent on your argument, organization, evidence, and your citations, because you often have to cite these take-home exams. Preparation, just like with any type of exam, is really important. You want to analyze the question. Oftentimes, students get the answers wrong because they don't read the question properly. I was doing some homework with my 9-year-old nephew. He had to do a Harry Potter escape room where he was learning fractions. He's really good at math, but sometimes he was getting the answer wrong because he read the question wrong. He was reading it too quickly. He got confident in that first part of the question, but then the answer was all but, and he didn't read the but part. So you have to make sure that you are reading the full question and understanding it. With take-home exams, you want to plan the answer using your notes. You definitely want to find the evidence and the citations, and you want to ensure that you have time to revise and edit. You want to follow good study practices, and professors are going to know if you are cheating and whether you paid someone or asked someone to do the work for you. Do not do this. And the best way to do this is to have a really good review program during the term where you don't have these stress and pressure that then have students reach out to these outside sources. If you have an open book exam, so it's still timed, but you're allowed to use your resources, you still need to be prepared. When you're doing your studying, you want to focus on higher levels of thinking. Not the who, what, where, when, but the application, the analysis, the evaluation, the creation type questions. When you're doing your study notes, you want to be really detailed. You can have sticky notes of important pages. You could even put them on a wall for reference, or you can have some study notes on walls or on your table, because you want to find a way to access information quickly. You also want to practice the structure. What is the question format? Is it multiple choice? Is it short answer? Is it essay type question? Again, avoid plagiarism and don't rely on easy tricks, but be prepared by using active study strategies. I did want to save some time for questions at the end. Again, this may take a little bit to open up the chat. Here it is. I'm not sure whether Sabrina or Febby, you took note of any that were really pressing, because something I can do is scroll through the chat to see where some questions are. So how would you like to do this?
I did see a couple of questions come in about 10 minutes ago. I can read them to you. So Dina is asking, do you think studying at night can be effective?
It can if you're a night person. Research has also shown that if you study before you go to sleep, really it's a top strategy, because while you're sleeping, your brain is actually just like a computer, organizing information, putting into different brain folders, for lack of a better word. But as long as you can move that short-term learning into long-term learning, where you can then recall the information on a test, that's what's important. So study at night, but only if you are a nighttime studier, and also perform self-care.
We have another question from Yan. He or she is asking, for how long should we be studying till the next break?
Who's going to be surprised when I say 30 minutes? 30 minutes, that's it. Everyone can be accountable to studying for 30 minutes. We are not going to be crammers anymore. Everyone put your hand up and say, I'm not going to be a crammer anymore. It does not work. You are not going to get the grades that you want when you compare it to having really good study practice. Something called the Pomodoro technique is what we, and I see some nodding here from Sabrina and Febby. Hopefully they use it, not just have heard of it, but it is 30 minutes of intense studying with a 5-minute break. The 5-minute break should actually be a nature break. It's not moving from one screen to another or one cognitive task to another. Get outside, look outside. If it's too cold, rainy, just take a look outside. Go up and down some stairs, do some stretches, but avoid other screens. On top of that, when you're studying for 30 minutes on chem and taking a 5-minute break, move on to bio. 5-minute break, go back to chem. This is again helping your brain move short-term into long-term information, because you're giving your brain a break from it, and your brain is working on doing those recall activities. Another tip for studying is called distributed practice, and that is reviewing material over multiple days. So again, if you have an exam on a Thursday, you're not cramming Wednesday night, you're going to start reviewing for half an hour to an hour with some breaks, 5 to 7 days out of the exam. Because you've had such a really good review practice, remember those 2 hours that I talked about that are dedicated to each class? Because you've been doing review in January, in February, in March, and early April, by the time you get to your exam, you actually have to study very little, because you've only been focusing on what you don't already know. You are not going to be reviewing what you already know. It's a waste of time. It may give you a little bit of confidence, but you are a very busy university student and you do not have time to do that. So by having a really effective review program, you're going to be much less stressed, much more focused, and ready to ace those exams.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to use the raise hand function if you want to unmute yourself, or again, you can put it in the chat. Please note that the session does end at 2:05, so we still have 5 minutes if any other questions come up. I also have a question, I guess. How do you have any other recommendations to help prevent burnout as you go throughout university?
Yeah, that's a good question. Burnout is real. It happens. So by having really good time management strategies is one way that you can help alleviate that. Looking at your weekly calendar, where is it that you can have some reward time? Where is it that you can reach out to friends or family members? Because I know here at McMaster we have the top students, but it's not all about school, everyone. You also have to enjoy life, and you can enjoy life and you can enjoy your reward time if you have really good study practices and time management. Take just a little bit of time each week where you could focus on, again, the reviewing, the active study strategy. So when you're going into exams, you don't have the stress of it. Yeah, burnout is real. Make sure that you're reaching out to professors and your TAs as well for support.
Okay, we have two more questions that just came in. One is from Jennifer, and she's asking,
Mhm.
what tips would you give to TAs supporting undergraduate students with studying?
I am a huge fan of study groups. Use the breakout rooms. That's how we use the virtual study sessions. It's 3 hours where my student staff assistant has the Pomodoro technique, where it's 30 minutes where you can either practice testing and teaching by yourself, or she puts you into small breakout rooms where you can practice it. So I would definitely encourage you to group students into study groups where they can meet on their own to practice these strategies.
We have another question. Yan is asking, do you think the longer you study, the better, or does it depend on study habits?
That's a really good question. And I'll have students come to me and say, Jen, I studied for 8 hours and I bombed the test. And I say, okay, if I was to come into where you were studying, what would I see you doing? Well, I was rereading my notes, I was highlighting, I was looking for important information, I made pretty flashcards, look at all these color coding that I used. And I said, the problem with that is it's so passive. You have to become an active learner because what you just did is memorization. And professors here are looking for so much more than memorization. They want to see that you can apply information in a new way. They're going to give you the key concept. Okay, how are you going to apply this to your healthcare case study? Here is the mitochondrial DNA, but how can you apply that to this particular situation? So you need to focus on higher levels of thinking. You have to look at the application, the synthesis, the evaluation, the creation type questions. You have to look for relationships, the advantages, the disadvantages, the pros, the cons. And that comes by being an active study strategy. And in that particular case, by using your graphic organizers. Use your tables, use your charts, use your mind maps. Why did you choose that particular information to put into your mind map? That uses higher levels of thinking as opposed to memorizing who, what, where, when.
We have one more question, and it is what tips would you give to high school students entering university?
That's a very open-ended question. I have a lot of tips. So I will stick with the first one that came to the top of my head, which is look for support early. And again, I talked about it before, you do not know who you can reach out to until you do research and learn about all the amazing, fantastic resources we have here at McMaster. We have academic coaches, the Student Success Center. We have a fabulous student wellness center, student accessibility services. The library team is top notch. Our professors, our TAs, all fantastic. But you do need to do research, see who you can support, who can support you. And I would also say my second tip would be participate in the summer transition programs. So we're going to have the academic skills prep series, and that's starting in July. We also have the summer writing program, and we're also going to be having our workshop series again during Welcome Week. Follow at MacSSC. I'll actually put that into the chat. And that is our Instagram account, and that's where we'll be posting all of our start dates, registration information, and we always have contests and prizes going on. So a really great account to start following here at McMaster.
Okay, well, it's past 2:05 now, so we're going to close off this workshop. Thank you again, Jenna, for all your help and taking time out of your weekend to give us all these really informative and insightful tips on how to become better online learners. It's really helpful, so thank you again. For attendees, Febby has linked the next call that'll happen at starting at 2:20 for the healthcare careers panel. So feel free to exit the call now. If you have any more questions for Jenna, again, she has posted the Instagram account where you can look at additional workshops that the Student Success Center does. So feel free to go through that. Again, thank you so much, Jenna. It's been a pleasure. And we will see you guys soon at 2:20.
Yeah, have a great term, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Okay. Also just one more thing for anyone that wants to rewatch this, it is recording, so we will have this posted eventually. So yeah, we're gonna end the call now. See you guys soon.